Hello to all you beautiful people of the internet. Welcome to another character profile, and this time we are looking at Sebastian Milton. He is male, his hair is blonde. In issue 177, he is early to mid-20s, and in issue 193, he is mid to late 40s, and before the apocalypse, he was most likely a student. And he may have lived in or near Ohio, but I'm guessing in, due to his mother. After the apocalypse, Sebastian survived the initial stages of the outbreak with his family. Before he and his mother got to the Commonwealth, his father and sister died due to unknown causes. My guess is most likely walkers, In the volume New World Order, Sebastian is first seen with Kayla outside the Commonwealth having intercourse with her. Their encounter is interrupted by Mercer, who steps in to save them from a Roma. He later complains to his mother about his lack of privacy. He later complains about Mercer to his mother, Pamela Milton. Sebastian later meets with Eugene's group and tries to flirt with Yumiko. Angered when the latter rejects his advances, Sebastian starts manhandling Yumiko and shoves Magna to the ground for trying to intervene, which then causes Princess to try and attack him. Outraged by the altercation, Sebastian demands Mercer to banish them all from the Commonwealth, but Mercer points out that Sebastian had provoked them first. Elodie then tries to help Sebastian up, only to be slapped by him, much to Michonne's anger. Don't fuck with Michonne. Sorry, shouldn't have said that. In the volume The Rotten Core, after the riots, Sebastian finds his mother cleaning up the mess and asks her what she is doing, only to be yelled at for cussing. He asks if there are other people that should be cleaning up the mess. Pamela says that they need to help and tells them to start helping, but that they need help and tells them to start helping, but he says no, causing a scene that gets Dwight and Laura's attention. Sebastian is seen outside on a hunt with his mother, Lance Hornsby, Maxwell Hawkins, Mercer, Rick Grimes, Michonne, and Dwight, when his mother sees a walker and asks Maxwell for a shotgun. Pamela hits the shoulder and tells Mercer to kill the walkers. She asks Sebastian if he wants to go back, and he replies saying that he didn't even want to come. And in the volume Rest in Peace, Sebastian arrives and tells Pamela that someone is banging on the door and trying to get in. Rick tells them that it's the conspirators and asks Maxwell to lead them to a back exit. Once outside, Sebastian grabs Rick and demands someone explain to him what's going on. Rick tells him that they're in the beginnings of a revolt and that he is trying to save Sebastian and his mother. Sebastian doesn't believe him since he thinks nobody's brave enough to defy them. Rick angrily grabs Rick by the throat and tells him that everyone hates him and his family since they take advantage of people and treat them like. He asserts that they are the worst of the Commonwealth, but he doesn't believe they deserve to die for it, citing this as the only reason he is helping them. He lets go of Sebastian when Pamela asks him to, and they continue with their escape. They wait for some guards to pass and go out into the street. Rick asks Pamela if she knows of a safe place to hide, to which she replies that they need to get to Greenville, where Cloris will be able to help them. They follow Maxwell and manage to escape to the woods, where Rick is reunited with Paul, Carl, and the rest of the entourage. After exchanging pleasantries, Rick instructs Jesus to escort Pamela, Sebastian, and Maxwell to Greenville. After the herd that breached the Commonwealth starts to thin out, both Rick and Michonne's group go to clear out the stragglers. The two groups, as well as Maggie and Magnus' forces, meet on the road. Maggie tells him that it looks like he didn't need the help after all, pointing to the army project on behind him. The army, to Rick and Michonne's shock, is led by Pamela and Sebastian. Pamela furiously asks them if they think she doesn't know what plot plots they have been hatching behind her back. Sorry, it was short-circuit in there. Rick is confused as to what she means, but Pamela goes on to say that he lied to her and believes that he was only helping her leave the city so he could march his army in and take over, conspiring with Mercer the entire time. Shocked, Rick denies the accusation, claiming that he has only worked to keep the peace in the Commonwealth, but Pamela doesn't believe him. Rick tells her to calm down and invites her to talk, but Pamela is bewildered that he would suggest negotiations with an army behind his back. His mother goes on to say that the army of Greenfield stands with her and that they won't stand for this deception. She then yells attack. Sebastian then watches on as Rick diffuses the fight before it can even begin. Rick then goes on a speech about how the Commonwealth is the future and we are not the Walking Dead. By the end of Rick's speech, Rick tells the people to stand up for themselves if they don't want Governor Pamela Milton leading. When Rick finishes his speech, Mercer arrests Pamela, much to everyone's shock. Mercer tells Pamela that he is taking her into custody for her safety. Furious, Sebastian protests that they can't arrest his mother and that they need them to keep the Commonwealth running, but Pamela tells him to be quiet unless he wants to end up in a cell next to her. As everyone cleans the streets, Mercer commends Rick, noting that even the upper class are helping with the cleanup. Aaron asks Sebastian for help, but he angrily storms right by him, Jesus dubbing Sebastian as an a-hole. In the middle of the night, Rick is woken in his bed and confronted by Sebastian, who is armed with a silenced pistol. Finding himself held at gunpoint, Rick tries to convince Sebastian that he doesn't want to do this, but Sebastian replies that he really wants it for his and his mother's hard work to go down the drain, and the Commonwealth is falling apart because of it, and goes on to claim that Rick ruined everything by disrupting the natural order of things. Rick instructs him to put down the gun, but Sebastian yells that, unlike everyone else, Rick can't tell him what to do. Sebastian reveals that he heard about Rick long before he saw him, and that his people almost view him as a god, when the people of the Commonwealth started to see him in this light as well. He resentfully points out that all it took was one speech from Rick for his family to be ousted from power. He rhetorically asks if he was supposed to pretend that he is like everyone else, just because Rick told him to. Despite Rick's best efforts to talk him down, Sebastian shoots him in the chest, clutching his wound in pain and bleeding heavily. Rick asks Sebastian, "What did you do?" Rick is still clutching his gunshot wound. As Rick is still clutching his gunshot wound, Sebastian apologizes, clearly panicked. He then shoots Rick 3 more times, killing him, before dropping the gun and fleeing the scene. Rick lies dead on his bed until morning. Carl is alarmed when he notices the door to Rick's room is open. Immediately upon entering, he is greeted by a now reanimated Rick. Aghast, Carl shoots his father in the head before slumping to the floor in tears. Carl remains motionless on the floor as guards discover Rick's body and fetch Mercer, who immediately recognizes the murder weapon as Sebastian's gun. 2 days later, he is caught and arrested for the assassination of Rick Grimes. Later that day, Carl visits Sebastian in jail. In tears, Sebastian recognizes Carl and tells him that he doesn't even know what to say to him. Sebastian recounts how hard things were before he and his mother arrived in the Commonwealth, and how once they were in charge, he thought he could do whatever he wanted. So when Rick everything up, he thought that things would go back to normal without him. Sebastian goes on to admit that he never killed a person before, and that, even though people say it's hard, it was actually very easy. He is abruptly told by Carl to shut up. Carl tells Sebastian that everyone is talking about him and that no one likes him, and in fact never did. Carl can tell Sebastian is not a good person and that he is not sorry for what he did, but rather that he got caught. Carl then reveals that Sebastian's mother was worried he would take matters into his own hands and kill him in revenge. But he thinks Sebastian being in prison is much better, since Carl gets to visit Sebastian whenever he wants and see his misery, while Sebastian will remember the life he once had with every visit, which Carl thinks is a much better punishment than death. Carl acknowledges that this is what his father would have wanted, but warns Sebastian that if he ever escapes, Carl will hurt him before dragging him back to his cell. With that, he tells Sebastian he'll be seeing him before departing. He does a little Negan thing, I think. I'll have to check back. Years after his incarceration, it is shown Sebastian remains in jail as a grown man, with his mother visiting him. For his actions, he is sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars. So that is Sebastian Milton. Very shorter role than in the TV series, I believe. Do you think the TV show did him justice, or do you think they should have stuck with the comic route? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. If you don't like what you see, either leave a dislike or go away. Have a good day.